you say Ukrainian, you usually associate that with a nice folk costume, with Easter egg, with embroidered blouse, vareniki, borscht, and dances.
It is part of a carefully controlled glimpse into the Soviet Union, engineered by the Soviet government for those of us on the outside. But Glasnost is allowing another view from inside, and painting the portrait of everyday life from this perspective is much more complex. Geographically, the Ukraine is much closer to Poland than to most of the rest of the Soviet republics. It is the size of Texas, home to 50 million, and its rich farmland has earned it the title breadbasket of the Soviet Union. But for all its resources, its people still struggle to overcome shortages of everyday necessities like meat, soap, and matches, and facing long lines for the goods that are available.
They have some problems with food. I told you already, some sugar and soap and sausage, like something like this, and they need to solve these problems too.
In one Ukrainian city, people gather nightly to debate the problems and to rally for reform.
They are talking about how to improve these problems, how to solve all these problems.
Just one change sparked by Glasnost, and there are others.
How are you tonight, okay? Okay! Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, Bon Jovi!
A cultural exchange program recently brought American music to Soviet teenagers. At the center of it all, Rochester disc jockey Scott Spezzano, who found something as simple as music can form a bond between young people that even differences between their governments cannot change.
I couldn't believe the sincerity of these people. It's unbelievable. Look what they gave me. They gave me a little pin. They look exactly the same as American audience. They dance the same as American people, but they were so infatuated with the music and the lights and everything that was going on.
That message is filtering down to a classroom of students who are part of another exchange that matches them with students from Baltimore.
It's amazing to me when we get together, like last Sunday we got together at Ina's house and we all just laughed and we were all in the same room and we lived so far apart, but we were friends, and that was really special.
And besides, of course, we're interested in the same problems that interested the world, the problems of peace, the problems of the communication between our countries.
Breaking down the barriers of generations is a slow process, but taking it one by one, there is hope. Morning in the city, the Soviet city of Lvov. Eugene Barkovsky spends it preparing his bus for tourists, labor he loves, even though it is a job chosen for him in part by the Soviet government.
It was his dream when he was a very small child. He was dreaming about this profession.
Eugene's employer is the Soviet government. He works the mandatory 38 hours a week, and for that he earns about 300 rubles a month. That's considered average here, about equal to our minimum wage. In this country, most couples are double income, and there is virtually no unemployment because the government guarantees a job to anyone who wants one. Eugene is secure knowing the government guarantees enough work to provide for his wife and 5 children. But these are the trade-offs to job security. Menial labor for some, no job choices for others, little incentive for most.
Since most people still don't work for themselves, but for the state, they don't care that much. They don't work that hard. They take it easy. And then when things aren't done, or things aren't well done, they complain.
Perhaps because work for most doesn't end with the work day. It is also work to provide essentials for the home. This woman left work early to wait in line 4 hours to buy a sausage for dinner, and she faces more lines for cheese and bread.
Do you wait every day? Does it take that long?
Каждый день занимает столько времени.
Не каждый день колбасу можно купить.
Not every day she can buy a sausage.
She's jubilant because the wait for meat frequently ends empty-handed when supplies run short. Deficit, it is called. But in this bickering over price lies the seed of change. Farmers selling the fruits of their extra labor for profit, the Soviet Union's first steps in capitalism.
And in the weekend, he is selling his extra production.
How many kopecks can you make selling, like in a weekend, if you will?
Сколько вы получаете, допустим, на субботу-воскресенье, когда вы продаете?
Ну, это смотря по базару и смотря по продукту.
It depends upon the market, and it depends upon the production.
Anatoly pays the government a sales tax, but can earn 2 to 3 times his government salary at harvest time. The government, in turn, gets more food to its people. Last year, incentive farming produced 30% of the country's food, working just 3% of its farmland. But the market isn't a cure-all. Eugene copes with the tough times with glimpses of the outside world shared from tourists who ride his bus.
He liked the way they live, and he liked their freedom and independence.
And he talks of such advantages for his children. But after 4 years of Mikhail Gorbachev's perestroika, he's still not sure when that day will come. One of the Ukraine's oldest and largest cities. Beneath its sleepy facade lies a political awakening. Glasnost reform taken literally to the streets, where the communist system for the first time is subject to democratic debate.
They need more democracy here. They need not to be promised it only on paper. They need to turn it into life.
A folk artist sings of another movement symbolized by the Ukrainian flag. Ukrainian nationalists gather under it nightly to take back the rights to their heritage communism has taken away.
It's the flag of the Ukrainian people, and it is symbolized our ancestors and our grandfathers. That is our history. That is our national pride.
This grassroots struggle for independence is in stark contrast to Lviv's Baltic neighbors to the north. There, demonstrations like a human chain have gained national attention. These meetings, on the other hand, go largely unnoticed by the outside world, but their goal is the same.
As with the Baltic states, these people want to give up Russian and speak only the language of their people, Ukrainian.
They need to talk only Ukrainian language in this territory. They need their own language, national one.
Others work underground for a more ambitious end, to put the Ukraine on a status with Poland or Hungary. This tape of the underground had to be smuggled out of the Soviet Union. It contains ideas so revolutionary they cost each of these dissidents time in prison. Oles Shevchenko paid with 65 days in a punishment cell in between hard labor camps.
It's extremely cold and impossible to fall asleep at night. And in addition, you get fed only every other day. And they showed me to my children and yelled, "Look at what kind of a father you've got. He's disowned you. What would you rather have, children? Your father or this rag you used to wipe your boots?" And my children answered, "Our father."
Shevchenko's crime? Publishing the Ukrainian Herald, a dissident newspaper.
The government simply fabricates criminal proceedings. You can be accused of rape, or theft, or drug trafficking. All of us here have been accused of some combination of such fabrications.
While it is true, under Glasnost, all political prisoners have been freed from jail, this telegram proves punishment in the form of exile is still a very real threat.
The regional party committee is making life unbearable. I've lived more than a week without food or shelter.
In many instances, the exile situation is much worse than prison, because in prison you get regular meals and you have a roof over your head. In many of the situations in exile, you have no living quarters, no means to earn a living, no means to buy food.
In the Soviet Ukraine, there are two faces to Glasnost, one that allows these people to speak out, and the one that keeps these underground. Buried inside this house, barely visible from the road, a treasure. A trove of Ukrainian history, carved in the faces of those whose lives gave it shape.
There was a thought created in my mind to capture and to collect the traditions of my people.
A homeland devastated by World War II sparked in Ivan Gunshar a passion that would consume 4 decades of his life.
The circumstances was terrible. Circumstances were terrible. Ukraine was plundered and destroyed before the war and during the war. And I came to this conclusion that I had to study and collect all that was possible and become myself this national artist.
He preserves in clay and on canvas only the Ukrainian people, heroes and ordinary citizens who have become heroes, struggling against the odds.
The whole country was perceived as a colony, either as part of Russia or part of Austria or Austro-Hungary or part of Poland, with the word Ukraine forbidden, with language not being taught in schools, with anybody who would write Ukrainian would be imprisoned and so on.
Like his people, Ivan Gunshar perseveres, martyred by pressure from Soviet leader Brezhnev, who once likened this dedication to the Ukraine treason to Russia.
It was proposed to me to give away or sell my collection, or otherwise they would take it or burn it. It gave me even more energy to do what I started to do. For my patriotism, they were persecuting me.
The Ukraine is filled with Ivan Gunshars, people so strongly rooted here they risk government disfavor to promote their heritage. For their actions, some are labeled nationalists, a title which until recently had grave consequences.
People have been choked. Stalin and Brezhnev's system, one could not express themselves, was not even allowed to think.
Because of people like Ivan Gunshar, folk traditions too have endured, handed down to a young glasnost generation, now free to practice them openly. Glasnost has not changed this patriot's life work, but it has made it easier. Those who once labeled him a traitor last year awarded him their highest honor.
They oppressed me, they subjugated me, they put a lot of oppression upon me, they just about crucified me. I have received a Shevchenko reward for it now.
In this government medal, Ivan Gunshar finds hope for his people under glasnost, and like those in his art, he is a national hero.
All the immigrants that have come have their families here, their fathers and their mothers, but my Hala and I do not have them. We miss them very much. We talk about them all the time. The children talk about them all the time.
It's more than thousands of miles that separate two sisters and their families. Maria grew up with her sister Hala near here, in an average-sized town in the Soviet Ukraine. Now, Maria cannot leave. Hala and her husband Timothy cannot return.
He would be very gladly to go and visit, but he does not have the documents that are necessary because his citizenship was taken from him.
So he can never go home? Is that what you're saying?
Чи то означає, що ти ніколи не можеш поїхати туди?
Як стану американським громадянином, то
When I become an American citizen, I will. Від нас хліб життя імені Ісуса.
On a cold night last December, Timothy and Hala ended 11 years of trying and emigrated to Rochester, the first of several dozen families taken in by Pentecostal churches. A very different Timothy speaks to us from his home nearly a year later. His biggest struggle now, to master the English language. But it is not easy to forget the struggle that brought him here.
When I was growing up, I was taken from my parents because they wanted to bring me up as they wanted me to grow up and be brought up.
It was the government's way of persecuting many who practiced the Pentecostal religion, and it is why Timothy and his family became refugees.
And here I know my children will not be taken from me, and they are free to worship the Lord in freedom as they please. And my children are very happy and blessed and very joyful.
On these tapes from Rochester, Maria sees her sister's family for the first time since their separation. Videotape technology making possible a reunion the Soviet government won't allow. Maria is playing the waiting game for visas and relies on monthly letters and occasional phone calls to stay close with her sister. But the same glasnost that allowed Timothy and his family to emigrate last year is actually making it more difficult for Maria and her family to emigrate this year. Mikhail Gorbachev has recently eased restrictions on religion in his country, and now the U.S. government no longer considers Maria a refugee, and she must wait in line to emigrate along with thousands of others who don't have a special status. But the love and faith of a family is not easily shaken. As we show you this videotape tonight, Timothy and Hala are seeing it for the first time too, and hearing these messages from their family back in the Soviet Union.
My dear sister, I'm so happy that I have seen you on the screen on television, your children, your little Hala. I'm so very happy that we have met. Oh, it feels like we've been together.
Separated by miles and ideologies, a family's hope endures. Not even the rain deters thousands each week from crowding through these gates. They come here to shop. This is Dual Chalk. We know it as the black market. Disorder, filth, and petty crime all exchanged for opportunity. The chance to buy what cannot be found in Soviet stores. It is a common practice here.
Everybody has a lot of rubles, but you can't buy anything for them because stores are empty. The stores are empty, but when you visit individual person, they seem to have everything in the house. That implies that they buy it on black market and so on.
The black market is simply a string of individuals selling one, sometimes several items they have smuggled in from foreign countries. But under glasnost, selling and buying is no longer illegal.
Now you might want to call this a government venture in capitalism. Merchants pay 1 ruble 50, about $2.50 to sell their goods here. Shoppers must pay 50 kopecks, about 80 cents, in order to buy.
But coming home with a purchase can be costly. 400 rubles or more for American Levi's. That's $650, equal to 6 weeks' salary for the average Soviet worker. The same jeans cost 38 rubles, $60 in government-run stores. But like other goods on the shelves, they are generally of poor quality. Standard government issue, similar to every other pair, sold in every other store. A choice is what draws thousands to Dual Chalk, but under glasnost, they are no longer forced to be part of the underground. And there are other changes as well. Nearly as old as the landscape itself is the Ukrainian belief in God. Anatoly Rimko knows that spirit. It caught his heart as a youngster and brought him to the seminary as a teen.
From the very beginning of his life, his mother taught him to love God, to love religion, because she believed in God, really. And after that, he made by himself his decision to come to this convent to study here.
But this place of great beauty is also a place of great sorrow. Shut down and nearly destroyed under Stalin, once reopened, hardship and persecution followed those who chose to study here. But in government disfavor, Anatoly found his greatest strength.
He don't care about the attitude of the government. He loved religion. He wanted to be a priest or probably something else, a teacher of the teenaged people who believed in God, so it was his decision.
The millions who share that belief now do so without government intervention, a glasnost reform introduced just last year.